complex projects on time, with proven results, pretty much on budget, and has really demonstrated an ROI on implementing his results into action and making sure these projects actually come to fruition. So he's really kind of a model of what we're talking about in all three facets that I was sharing with you. And by the way, he's 13 years old. Please join me in welcoming Vitale Diamandis. This may tell us who's going to be paying our Social Security in a few years. Vitale, come share with us your story.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for introducing me, Professor Chesbro, because it's an honor to be here, because I'm only 13. I'm basically making history right now, and this is very nerve-wracking. Okay.
It's a friendly audience.
Okay. So, to start off, I want to tell everyone a story here about a 5-year-old boy who grew up being very creative and ambitious, and aspired to create new things, things that people think he could create at that age. And his parents were very supportive of his ideas, and he made great things. So before we continue with the story, let me address the two main points I want to talk about in this presentation. And the first one is that real creativity is based on what resources you have available to play with. And what I mean by that is, if given the opportunity to really express yourself and have the freedom to do what you want with like time, it really expresses your inner performance, and it shows what you're really capable of if you're given your freedom to explore in your work. Now, the second point is, if anybody tells you that something cannot be accomplished, prove them wrong. And I know it sounds a little bit blunt, however, let me explain. So, when people tell you that things cannot be done, what they really mean is that they don't think it can be done. However, they may be on a different mindset level than you, and that means that they may think it's not possible. However, you think it can be perfectly capable of having it done. And if you think in your heart that you can truly accomplish the task that you're talking about, do it. Don't listen to what they say, because they're on a different level than you. Now, back to the story about this 5-year-old boy. And this boy is actually me, so I'm going to be talking about my life story a little bit. So at age 5, I started YouTubing, and how I started was that when I was 5, I wanted to create a restaurant, or open up a restaurant in Boulder, Colorado, and the name of it was Boulder's Lunch and Dinner. And I dressed up in my little chef suit, I created a menu for my restaurant, and I had the imagination and ambition to create a restaurant at age 5. Now I'm going to play a video of me talking about my menu.
Action.
Welcome to Boulder's Lunch and Dinner. There's a new block around the street, new restaurant. No, we have very delicious food that you want, with boards and dishes you want. And number 1, salad, we have a big salad, $25. Then we have a medium salad, $15. Small salad, $7. We got a very small salad, $4. Mini salad this big, $2. And then the fruit stash, $8. And then we have the soup, American soup, $3. Then we have the miso soup, $4. Then the dessert stuff, chocolate ice cream. That is $7.59. Thank you for coming.
Now, I understand that may have been the most agonizing minute of your life, but keep in mind that I was 5 at the time. People this age were still stacking wooden bricks on top of each other, and I was here creating YouTube videos about my aspiration to create a restaurant in Colorado. Now, at age 9, I wanted to create a supercomputer desktop, because as every other 9-year-old boy at the time, I wanted to play video games. And I went online to go and buy a computer, and I realized that a lot of these computers were very expensive, and I didn't want to pay so much for a computer, and I thought that there has to be a better way to play or have a supercomputer for a low price. Now, I do some research, and I figure out that you can actually build a computer at age 9. And I did the research, I sourced the parts, and I built my own computer in 2 months at age 9. Now, at age 11, I expanded my YouTube channel to different kinds of subjects like vlogging, gaming videos, and commentary, and I established my brand name on YouTube named Brontech. Now, the same year at age 11, I saw an ad on Google of this company called Boosted Board. And what they do is that they sell electric skateboards online, and you could buy them, and they go 21 miles an hour, and they're overall cool. And I was a fan of skateboarding at the time, and I wanted one. So I go on the ad, and I see that the skateboard is $2,500. $2,500 for an electric skateboard. That's the price of a used car. So I knew that there had to be a better way to have an electric skateboard on a lower price. So I do some searching, and I figure out there's something called a DIY electric skateboard. And what that basically is a skateboard that's electric that you create yourself. You source the parts from around the world, and you buy them, and then you build them yourself. So at age 11, I thought this was a huge task for me. However, I took on the opportunity because I had the ability to purchase something like that. So I purchased the parts. I did my research for 6 months, learning how to solder, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, because there's a lot of components that go into something like that. It's not something you just plug in, mount on, and run. So it took me 6 months of researching, and then I purchased the parts, and after 6 months, and after 3 generations of my skateboard, on the left is my first generation, the right is my second generation, and then at age 12, my third generation is posted above. And I finally completed my electric skateboard at age 12. Now, this skateboard went much quicker than a normal skateboard because consumer skateboards are limited to 21 miles an hour, and my skateboard went 35. And I also built it for half the price of a $2,500 boosted board. So I overall saved a lot of money and learned many lessons from this build. Here's a video of my electric skateboard. Now you can see that the skateboard has many different uses. You can lay down and sleep, or you could stand up and ride. So at age 12, I wanted a little more oomph to my gaming computer, and also cryptocurrency was becoming a craze at the time to mine. So I thought it was a win-win that I could build an even cooler computer, and I could also mine some cryptocurrency and make some money back. So I buy the parts, and they come in, and after 2 weeks, I finish this computer. Now this proves that I've learned a lot of knowledge from my previous computer because it took me 2 months to build my first computer, and this computer only took me 2 weeks. Now, it was cooler than before, had water cooling and all that stuff, and overall, it was a great learning experience. Now, at 13, my age, this is my biggest project yet, I was also online. I saw this old guy riding on this big motorcycle, or a bicycle actually, and there was a motor attached to it. And I also thought that was the coolest thing ever, and I wanted one. So I go out and I look at how did he get this bicycle with an engine strapped onto it, and I search up bicycle with a motor, nothing comes up. Motor installed on a bike, nothing. However, after maybe 20 minutes of looking around trying to see how he got this, I noticed that he actually, there's a forum online with people and there's videos, and these people are actually building these bikes, not buying them. Because electric bikes are much more common than gasoline bikes because they're just overall much more reliable and safer. So, and I just wanted something cool instead of an electric bike because, in my opinion, they're a little bit boring. So, I find out that you actually have to buy all these parts separately. The engine separately, the mounting plate separately, transmission separately, gears, chains, it's all on your own. Nobody has built, every single bike is different. So if you build your own bike, no one can really help you because each bike is different. And there's very few people who are building stuff like this. So I decided to take on the risk, knowing me, fearing that I may come at a big roadblock because there's no one to help me out here and I'm 13. However, I still decide to take the risk. So I buy the parts, they come in after a week, and I start building it. Maybe it takes me a week, much shorter than my electric skateboard. And at the end of the week, I was 99% complete. I was almost done with it. There was one thing left I had to install. It was a small chain that links the motor to the transmission. It was either too loose or too tight, and I didn't know what to do. I did not have the proper tools to do something like that. So I brought it to a bike specialist because they can adjust chains. And I bring it to the shop, it's a garage, and he looks at the bike, he looks at me, and says, "Kid, you're crazy." And he just kind of goes on and on about, "You're 13, what are you trying to do? You're building a motorized bike, and this is a lawnmower engine on a bicycle. You're gonna end up getting yourself killed, kid. And it's very dangerous, it can't even go 5 miles, and it'll blow up on you." And he basically just scoffed at my entire build and made me feel bad. So he told me to pack up my bike inside my truck, and we drove home. So the bike kind of sat in the garage for a couple days because I was really just crushed by someone who was smarter than me, told me that this build cannot be done. That's it. I feared this roadblock would come my way, and now I'm 99% complete, and there's this chain that's stopping this entire project. And now I have an investment in my garage that's now collecting dust. So after a couple days, I was laying in my bed one night, and I told myself that I'm going to make this work. I'm going to get this bicycle to be running on the street, and I don't care what I have to do, I'm going to make it work. So tomorrow, I set out from morning to night, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., I'm working on this bike, trying to see how can I get this chain to work. And right when I was going to quit, right when I was going to say, you know what, I'm going to call this a day, I spot a little bolt. I loosen the bolt, and the entire plate moves. I move it, I tighten it, and the chain fits perfectly. So all I had to do was loosen the bolt, move something, and tighten it. That took me 10 seconds, and now this bike is completely operational. So tomorrow, I get on the bike, and I have the time of my life. I'm riding all around the city, screaming because I'm so happy that this person who was superior than me, supposedly had more knowledge than me, told me that I could not do this at this age and that it was impossible. I should just give up. And I didn't believe that. I didn't believe what he thought. And I tried, and I was determined to get this to work, and I made it work. Here's the bike in action. So I want to build a car next. However, my mom tells me I may have to wait until I get a driver's permit to ride it. But maybe I can convince her in the meantime, fingers crossed. But if there's any car manufacturers in the audience that have any spare parts or even a car, I'm more than happy to take them. I'm sure we can make some sort of deal here. So back to my main points of this presentation, that real creativity is based on what resources you have available to play with. And from hearing my story, you can tell that I had the opportunity to use many resources as a kid. And this is what I was capable of when I was given all these resources to create these things. And if anybody tells you that something cannot be done, prove them wrong. And now, listening to my life story, you can see that this person, the bike specialist, told me that I could not build it. And he told me it was impossible. And he was much more smarter than me, supposedly. And he thought it was impossible. However, I thought it was possible. I thought I was on a higher level, that I thought I could do this, I could make this. And I convinced myself I can make this, and I will make it work. And after a couple days, I did make it work, even though people thought it was seemingly impossible. Now, to relate this to the corporate world, if people in the corporate world are restricted access to tools and opportunities to express their creativity, how can you really expect them to improve? Because many people who are working at jobs and businesses, they have a very tight curriculum in which they can't really express themselves and put their own twist on things. And I feel that this may impact their performance because they cannot reveal their true potential in oneself because of their creativity. So if I want something that everyone can take away from this presentation, I want them to know that creativity and ambition inspire success. Now, the corporate world can really benefit from having newcomers like me, the new generation, for joining the workforce in a number of years, because we can provide a different outlook on different types of solutions. Maybe we could offer a cheaper, more efficient way because of our creative and different way of thinking. Now, the real question remains, would people like us want to join a corporation like this?
Yes.
Because we have a very creative and different mindset and we may want to create our own business because we feel like our ideas can support themselves on their own. Now, my contact information is posted below, and before I finish, I just want to thank my family sitting right there because I wouldn't be here without them. So if we can give them a warm round of applause.
So Vitale, in the time that we have remaining, let me just ask, you've been with this conference the whole 3 days.
Yes.
What are your impressions from what you've heard? And give us your sense of what excited you and maybe anything that concerned you from your 3 days here.
You know, it's a very different experience because I'm around a bunch of people that are older than me. And I mean, I learned a lot of things about business and that type. And I really felt like this was a very beneficial experience. And I feel like kids should actually come here more because it kind of teaches you what it's going to be like when you grow up. And you can kind of see how, I just think it's an overall very beneficial experience. So if any kids are watching me, you should definitely come sometime.
So one thought I had for you, listening to Steve Wozniak yesterday, is that he had a very playful aspect to him. And he was somebody who hacked and who, played pranks using the long-distance telephone system. And I think he had that, and even though he was now a much, much older guy, I still saw that creativity and playfulness still with him.
Yeah.
So at least for me, he was somebody who I think would really resonate with your experience, and maybe vice versa as well.
Yeah, I was kind of inspired by him, and I was surprised because so many people told me that, Steve Wozniak and I were kind of somewhat related in some way. I'm not sure what they exactly meant, but people told me that. And I was kind of inspired by him because as a kid, I always kind of wanted to be like him. I wanted to create something and impact the world in some way, and I'm on the way to that, I hope.
Well, this is great, and this is going to be useful when we go back to those questions that you put up at the beginning of our morning session today to kind of get people to think about what's getting in the way of doing this. So thanks very much for sharing your story. Personally, I give a lot of credit to the family, who obviously is responsible for this marvelous specimen we have here. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thanks. Wow. How'd that make you feel and close out with today? All right? Awesome stuff.